We're doing a sermon series on this month of September about how to do it better. And this is just a lesson in discipline. There are things that you do that when you do them, can you do them a little bit better the next season of life? And so 3 weeks ago, I talked about obedience. I talked about personal devotion. How do you pray? For a lot of us, our simple prayers are, I ask God for stuff, and like the lottery, I just hope I win. I hope he just decides. And I challenge you with not just by prayer and the act of prayer, but obedience in the prayer. And obedience has to come with listening. So my challenge for you personally in your personal devotions, allow more listening, allow more quiet space. I asked you to consider fasting. And that may not necessarily just be food, but to have space where things that distract you, you give up so that you're allowing God to speak into you more. One of the ones that's really profound for me of late, I haven't done it this past week very well, but I love when I go to bed, instead of watching shows, trying to read more. My morning devotions have been so fun. I haven't put in as much reading time as I would like in the morning. And so then I have that in the evening, and it's amazing how not turning the TV on, I seem to sleep better, if you will. So having that kind of mindset that your devotions, you're getting better. I asked you a couple of weeks ago about the fellowship like life groups, and we call it the great debate. In the church, we want to be the ones having the discussion. Don't be the ones that are out there saying, gosh, all the political things people are talking about, and as Christians, we just got to keep it to ourselves. It's not a private faith. It's your ability to understand biblically how important it is to respond to people who disagree with God's will and laws. Now, they may live differently, and that is their freedom to choose so. So you don't have to police people, but we want to have the conversation, and we need to practice it. That's why when you come into the discussion groups, like life groups, you're sitting around the table. I still leave this as an open door. Somebody take me up on it. Would you like to do a Bible study at your place of work? Can I help you set that up so that you feel like you have the right tools, the right resources? And I'm very thankful for Ott leading the men and Rayanne and Andrea leading the women. It just takes that initiative to want to get people together and have those conversations, that people have a different perspective, and it will help you. So have the conversation, be more disciplined in having those conversations. Some of you have texted me or messaged me on Facebook Messenger. It's been delightful. Just a random question on a topic, and that's an engagement as well. And then last week, we talked about be excellent in worship and all the things that go into worship. So worship is, we sing. Janie and I were talking about how we got to work on our singing in the round. That was very challenging. I know I challenged you to sing the round last week. The other thing I'm encouraging you to do is to think about worship in all of its structures, right? Giving, our sacrifice, our generosity. That sacrifice in Old Testament was the 2 goats. One goat was sacrificed Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. One was sacrificed for the sins of the people. But last week, I loved having the second one, the scapegoat. Now, somebody's always the scapegoat in the family, right? Somebody's the person that you just are like, we're going to blame you. Like, why? I didn't do anything. Yeah, it's all right. You're the youngest. Nobody cares. Some of you youngest ones probably feel that way. Well, the scapegoat was when they were purified with the first goat's sacrifice to be in the presence of God. It was kind of like the garbage, right? What do we do with the garbage now that we've collected it? We need to get it out of the house. We need to get it out of here. The scapegoat, they would put all the sins of the people on the scapegoat and would usher it out of town. Well, that was so biblical in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Jesus' blood is the sacrifice, the atonement that allows us to be in the presence of God. But what happened to the sins? He took them with him to the grave. Isn't that great? So what did I ask you to really offer in excellence last week? As a church, it's not about our songs. It's not about our money. If it's not first about confession. When you came into worship, excellence in worship is that we are a confessing church, that we're willing to say, Father, forgive me for I have sinned. I fall short of the glory of God. The wages of sin is death. I get this. I want to continually come back to you. Well, that leads us into our last sermon today, how to finish stronger. Now, this is where for us to do this whole attitude of obedience, of discussion, of study, of worship, I hope at the end of your life, I will have the privilege, or somebody will have the privilege to speak this over you. Now just think about this for a minute. when I die, I want somebody to be able to say, he fought the good fight, he finished the race, and he kept the faith. Let's personalize it. Go ahead and read that with me this morning. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. You just memorized the verse, 2 Timothy 4:7. Isn't that great? I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now, Paul is referring to the great Olympians. Even in Greece, he's talking about this mythology of great athletes who were runners, and he's translating that to say, you likewise have a marathon. You have a life that starts at 1 mile and ends at the last mile. We don't know exactly where that is, but your life in between, did you fight the good fight? I want to talk about that a little bit this morning a bit. Did you finish the race? Did you stay true to the end? And did you keep your faith all along the way? Now I'm going to ask you in that similar fashion of the marathon, what mile are you in your life? What season are you in? Are you a child? Are you a teenager? Are you a young adult? Are you raising kids? Are you an empty nester? Are you newly married? What is your situation in life? Are you in retirement? Are you in a season of struggle? Are you in a season of peace? We know that the mile for many of our farmers, they're in the season of harvest, getting into the fall. Now, here's what I'm also going to ask you. How many of you feel like at times that is your last mile? I'm going to give you something very important as a takeaway today. You ready for this? When you get anxious, when you get upset, when you get angry, when something just spikes your emotions, you ready? You've let a temporary event speak into your life with eternal significance. Now just soak that in for a minute. Whatever mile you're in, when you get really upset, usually you're making that mile feel like it's the last one. You're done with the race. It's over. You're done with that relationship. You're done with that job. You're done with that other person. You're done with that friend. Hear me. This is where we as a church, when I say finish stronger, better, I'm inviting you to reverse that mentality. That mentality of a Christian says, this mile is actually temporary. I want to do the best I can in this mile, but there's another mile coming. If I live in eternity, then eternity is vast and glorious, and so this 5-minute conversation should not weigh me down. I don't need to spiral out of control, replaying the conversation, giving the person with whom I had the conversation that upset me authority to speak into my life as if it has eternal significance. It doesn't. It may have been an important conversation, but it's not the last mile. So I want to share some tips this morning on how you can finish stronger, better. Let me give you the first one that comes with this. When we talk about fight the good fight, I'm not talking about, my wife and I, we got married, we didn't know how to fight. I am aggressive, she's passive-aggressive, she's my snapping turtle. So the snapping turtle is where I say something, she goes, and then like later, just comes out and she'll come after me, and I'm like, whoa, where's that coming from? She processed what she was thinking about with the conversation. Well, one fight got pretty bad. Some of you heard the story, but it fits this example of how we fight the wrong way. I got really mad. I actually hung up on her mom. That was bad. I was so mad. I'm just going to play this out. She kept moving my coffee maker. We were newly married people, and I'm like, it's the one thing I need in the kitchen. Stop moving the coffee maker. Can you please stop moving it? And she kept storing it. She kept putting it away, and I'm like, it's really important for me to get up and have my coffee. Stop moving the coffee maker. Well, apparently we got into this really big fight. It was so bad. I was mad at her, and she was moving the coffee maker, and she didn't think it was that big of a deal. Well, I turned around, and I was sort of still stomping around. I turned back. She called her mom. Her mom was on the phone. He's yelling at me. She goes, Mom wants to talk to you. And I took the phone, and I said, yes, Mom? She said, what is going on? I said, I don't know, but we're the married people. We're going to take care of it. And I hung up on her. She's still 30 years later, not forgotten that I hung up on her. Well, I wanted to make it up to my wife, so I worked at Target at the time, and I went to Target, and I got, anybody seen those sock and boppers? They blow them up, and you put them on, and you get to box each other, yay. So I brought those home, and I said, honey, I'm really sorry we got into a fight. maybe this would be a fun way to just take it out on each other, right? And I hand her the box, and I'm a talker, so I'm still talking, getting it out. I'm like, oh, it doesn't come with instructions. Oh, you just blow these up. All the while, she's going, I don't hear a word. She gets hers blown up. I'm barely got one, and she came at me. Like it was on. I mean, at the face, you know what I mean? Like, she popped them. She was hitting me so hard. I realized then and there, I'm like, not my best moment. Do not ever give your wife something to hit you with. Say, go ahead. Marriages feel like that, don't they? You feel like you get into a fight, and when I say fight the good fight, everybody's like, yeah, it's us versus them, me versus you. I've got to figure out how to take you down. What does it say after that word? Fight. To win people back. When Paul said fight the good fight, he was referencing how do you fight to win a relationship back. That is totally different. As Christians, the conversation is not how do my wife and I fight each other and we're really mad at each other. How do we work together? How do we stay at it? How do we get back into the conversation when somebody says something that hurts my feelings and I know I got to stay with it? The reason you have to learn how to fight is because eternally, what is significant is that there are going to be people who go to hell. There's a heaven, there is a hell. And Jesus told Peter we are going to push back the gates of hell. So what we're actually doing when we reconcile, when we figure out how to make conversation with people, to collaborate and win them back. That was Paul. He said, you've got to be in shape for that kind of battle. No hill for a climber, because you're so good at letting people know how much you love them, despite how many things they throw at you, how many arrows they throw on your back. You stay the course with God's grace. It's Micah 6:8. Do justice, right? Love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. So I want to talk a little bit more about how we can do this. First of all, I'm going to give you permission this morning. Choose your battles wisely. If you're going to fight the good fight, you have to have it in good faith. Everybody, put your hand out like this. You're going to love this. And then just turn the volume down. Turn the volume down. Now, I don't want you to do that in somebody's face, right? Sisters here, you'll be like, just turn it down. If you're going to get punched if you do this to them, but what I'm actually, behind their back, this is terrible to say, just be like, I'm going to turn that volume down, right? You ever get into that where you're letting somebody get in your head, but they're not doing it in good faith? They're telling you, they're talking down to you, their politics are all up in your grill. I always say this about my brother. We have the same politics, but if we disagree, he's like, heretic! I'm like, I barely disagree with you, but if I don't fully agree. And then we have my family is always just in argument space, and we have these great debates. But if you can't have a conversation in good faith, what I'm telling you is that for some of you, you need to turn the volume down. That person has way too much say in your life, right? Turn the volume up with Jesus. Turn the volume down with somebody who's a naysayer and they're just coming at you. So when I say fight the good fight, you have to have that conversation in good faith. That said, you have to be willing to go in and bring the volume down. Too many Christians, we turn up the chaos. We need to be the peacemakers. We walk into the conversation, we say, you know what, I'm not going to let you get to me personally. I have my confidences in the Lord. I'm not a perfect person. When runners run, they talk about trying to keep a heart rate rhythm, to be pace setters. And so, in other words, this is the irony of it. Marathon runners don't typically try to get out of the gates fast and furious. They actually try to have a slower pace when they start so they can have the energy and the carbohydrates and the strength when they're ending the marathon. For some of us, we just go right into these debates, these conversations, these conflicts. Fight the good fight is, can we bring the volume down? Can we bring the temperature down? Can you just ask questions? Allow people to unpack what they're going through. Can you get to the deeper layers of the onion that's going on? Hey, I don't think this is me. I think you're upset about something else. Do you want to talk about that instead? That's the fight. Paul wants a battle with the enemy, the evil one, to bring people back into relationship with the Lord and with one another. Now, in order to do that, you also have to finish with your best today. The other attitude is you're not trying to run a marathon and only thinking in eternal significance, right? they have some eternal significance. You layer them one on top of the other, one after the other, and you'll have a life that is lived well. But when you're thinking about finishing life, I'm going to bring it back to just finish with your best today. You did great today. You got up and you came to church. You did great today. You know where this phrase, just see how many of you know where this phrase comes. Good, better, best, never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best. Anyone? Well, I can tell you who said it, and I loathe the man. I actually like the man. I don't like what he does for a living. I don't mind what he does for a living. I don't like what he does for a living on last Sunday. His name is Ben Johnson. He's the coach of the Chicago Bears. And after they beat the Cowboys, they show them in the locker room, and he gets right in the middle of the huddle, and he goes, "What do I always say?" And I'm like, "Did the Bears suck?" No. It was a good game until it wasn't. Thank you very much, Shannon. Ready? What does he say? Good, better, best, never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best. And I'm going to add a little Christian adage to that, and then let God do the rest. Good, better, best, never let it rest until your good is better and your better is your best. And then let God do the rest. What's that? Are you trying to write it down? I didn't put it up there. I'll put it online later this week. Here's what's really important about it. What we need to do better is to just do better today. What he was talking about is he said, and you all have heard this in the Sports Illustration, Caleb Williams has not been a great quarterback yet. And all Ben Johnson has been talking about, and this applies what he shared at the end of the game, is he just needs to see increments of improvement, not casting it aside altogether. I'm never going to get this right, so I'm not even going to try. When you came in this morning, you sing. You may not have a great voice, but you try. I laughed at the irony of this sermon is that everything seemed to go wrong this morning. We struggled to just be okay, not good. And then finally it worked out, and we got a little bit better. And that's what God wants in your life. I'll give you another way to look at it, too. You have to love the process. That is holy, not just eternity. In the moment, even though it's temporary, God can make that moment holy. Another way to say it is, in football, let's stick with the football illustration. How much actual football do they play in a game? A 4-hour football game. Where they are actually trying to hit another player, run the ball, catch the ball, tackle, all that. An hour. Joe?
13 minutes.
It is. It's 11 minutes. 11 minutes of actual football. Can you believe you sit there for 4 hours and you get 11 minutes of activity? It's crazy, right? How about this one? If you're a receiver and you might get the ball thrown to you 6 times, you might block in 3 or 4 of the places. You know, if you're a wideout, you're not blocking for the interior run. That guy's not chasing it down. So it's kind of like, oh, I just jog around. You might have 2 minutes. Did you catch that? We're paying somebody $30 million to have 2 minutes a weekend of activity. Why is that important? Here's the gold. Because he has to love everything that gets him to those 2 minutes. Usain Bolt may only run for 9 seconds, but he has to love everything that leads up to that race. Church, too many of us only love when God blesses us. We don't love the process of living our lives for Jesus day to day and just getting better at the process. The receiver has to love the drills and running the routes and tying the shoelaces, the workouts. If you learn to love that, if that gets your best, then it will take care of the rest. So I'm inviting you to just have some self-awareness this week and say, where do I not finish with my best? Where do I come home and only give my spouse the leftovers when I'm empty? When do I snap at my kids because I'm sort of delaying some time with them or discipline that they need in our household or for their own awareness? Where am I sort of just getting by? And where in my... Now, I share this with you. It could be morning, it could be afternoon, it could be evening. For me, of late, I'm going to start working on my evening routines Be it after meetings when I go home, not to just turn the TV on and watch 45 minutes of shows. How do I have more pacing in the evening that might give me a better night rest? Set smaller goals. This is what marathon runners do. They run the next step. They don't run 26 miles in mind. They just run the next mile. I go down Bertolino Avenue, and I've got a little exercise route that I run. I take that back. That was 15 years ago that I walk. I'm sorry, that's 5 years ago. That I just kind of walk. And I get to, now Bertolino Avenue has those, you see the power lines, right? But I'm still at a part that I'm like, I'm sprinting from that power line to that power line. And that's a great idea when I'm walking up and I still have 20 feet for the first power line. But I get to the power line, and I got about 10 steps running, and I'm like, I can't make it. I'm going to die. But you know, if I just go to that next power line, that's all I need. That's all I need, that next one. I don't think about 5 miles. I just think of that 50 feet. Now, for many of us in here this morning, we throw all eternity into these individual moments. I'm trying to reverse that for you. Say, just make that moment your best, and it'll actually bless eternity. If you overthink it, put too much into it, you'll make it worse. If you just let it be the moment that you just try to do a little bit better, finish that race. And then, of course, lastly, Paul says, keep your faith. This is the most important one, I think, if it gives you some hope. Hebrews 11:1, faith is believing in all things hoped for, certain of what we do not see. This is you're running the marathon, you don't see what's around the corner. So in your moment, it may feel really bad, you may go through a difficult season. If you can think of the next mile, that this is only a season, it's only temporary, it will change your life. You'll have a conversation with God that will be laughable. God will say, I know you're going through a tough time. It'll get better. This will pass. For every one of us here, I say it in another way, you have another chapter. When you read a book or you watch a movie, the storyline goes up and down and you get into conflict, but you know it's going to have resolution. What is the conflict resolution of the story? When you read a book, you're going to get into a chapter and you feel scared, you feel anxious, you're like, what about my main character? But you know there's another chapter. You're an eternal being. So whatever you're facing, don't let it have eternal significance. Understand it's only there for a season and it's going to move on. There's an old parable of the farmer's horse who runs away, and the neighbor says, that's terrible luck. And the farmer says, we'll see. The next day, the horse returns, bringing several wild horses with it. And the neighbor goes, well, how wonderful. Now you have more horses. And the farmer says, well, we'll see. The farmer's son tries to ride one of the untamed horses, gets thrown off, breaks his leg. And the neighbor says, oh, my goodness, how terrible. And the farmer replies, we'll see. Soon after, the army comes to the village to recruit young men into war, but because the son's leg was broken, he was not taken. The neighbor says, how fortunate, and the farmer replies, we'll see. The moral of the story is that what looks like disaster may lead to a blessing. What looks like a blessing may carry hidden challenges. It is for us to simply live in that moment, to do the best we can in that moment, and with trust and patience believe that there's another chapter, there's another mile down the road. Did you know Colonel Sanders was in his 60s when he developed Kentucky Fried Chicken? Did you know that Dave Thomas worked for him? And Dave Thomas eventually went on to create what? Wendy's, right? John Newton was a slave owner. We are going to sing his song in just a minute. Anybody know what John Newton wrote? The most famous hymn? Amazing Grace. John Newton was a slave ship captain. And to atone for his sins years and years, he then took on a life of ministry. Later in life, one of his mentees, if you will, was a man named by William Wilberforce. If you don't know who William Wilberforce is, you should watch the movie Amazing Grace, the title. It is about him in Parliament in England in the 1830s and 40s and 50s. And he is the very reason England abolished the slave trade. And his mentor was John Newton. John Newton had difficult miles of his life, but God had future miles for him that would actually change the world. So, for you this morning, finish stronger, better. Finish stronger, better. Don't try to be perfect. Just try to take something in your life, whatever audit you do right now, your money, your relationships, your kids, your downtime, even at work. Can you do it better? Can you stop blaming other people for why you're not doing it your best and simply give it to God, and he'll do the rest?